They call it the news. It's meant to inform you. But do you ever really feel informed? Here, we look for the signal in all that static. I'm Caesar, and welcome to Strange Frequency. And welcome to the show, guys. Let's get this going. And we're going to try to explain why everything feels pointless lately. You ever notice you can check all the boxes and still feel like something's missing? Not dramatically missing, just not there. No sense of weight, no sense of importance, just movement without meaning. More people are describing this exact feeling. They're not failing, they're working, progressing, staying consistent, and yet there's no real attachment to what they're doing. It feels replaceable, maybe. Like it could all be swapped out tomorrow and nothing would really change. Because something has shifted in how life is structured right now. Paths used to feel linear. You built towards something. There was a direction. And along that path, you attach meaning to milestones. Graduate high school, go to the military, go to a trade school, go to college. Okay, we got a degree, we got a certificate. Now, let's find that special someone. Let's have a family, let's have kids. These were meaningful. Now they're seeming less and less likely. Once you have the family and kids, usually goes along with a house. All these things are becoming so much more difficult to get. So now, there's some people that view it as if we have too many choices, that there's too many paths right now. Not that it's unattainable, we just have too many options and no clear signal of which one matters. So here's what we know. Here's what I know. When everything is optional, nothing feels necessary. And when nothing feels necessary, it's hard to assign any meaning to it. Meaning requires constraint. It requires limitation. It requires something to push against. But modern life removes a lot of that, so people drift without even realizing they're drifting. And here's where it gets a little bit more uncomfortable, because this isn't about motivation. It's not even about discipline. It's simply about direction. If you don't believe in what you're doing, if you don't believe what you're doing matters, you can still do it. You just won't feel anything from it. And then that's when that apathy sets in, which is a death sentence. And over time, that turns into this question. What's the point? Like, what's the fucking point of any of it? And there's a lot of people feeling that right now. So maybe the problem isn't that life is meaningless. Maybe it's that the meaning isn't being reinforced anymore. No clear path. No clear signal, just options and options. And options, they don't create meaning. They create hesitation. And hesitation feels a lot like emptiness. And guys, we are still considering going back to our very dark background, the black background. Probably going to look into that for maybe next week's episode, because I am kind of partial to the dark. I do my best work at night. And I would say most of you do too if you're watching this, right? So our next segment we're moving into is called Engineered Consensus. You ever catch something and realize you've heard it before? Everywhere? Different voices, different platforms, same conclusion. After a while, you stop questioning it. You just accept it. And there's a reason for that. People aren't built to analyze everything from scratch. We look for patterns, signals, and familiarity. If something shows up often enough, it starts to feel reliable. And not because it's been proven, but because it keeps reappearing. Think about that. That's how ideas settle in, not through one convincing argument, but through repeated exposure that makes them feel established. And think about it in your life. How many of these news broadcasters on big 3-letter networks that repeat the same thing over and over, and because they're viewed as qualified people, a lot of people just accept it as truth, even though they're just spitting a narrative they've been told to spit out, that probably 1,000 other networks are saying the same thing because they're all owned by a handful of agencies or entities in that. Now, there are a few consistent ways this happens. Repetition turns a claim into something that feels normal. Credibility lowers resistance. Again, qualified people. If a recognized source says it, most people won't challenge it, and visibility creates pressure. If it looks widely accepted, fewer people push back. Here's what we know. Most people don't audit every belief they hold. They rely on what feels consistent, what shows up often, and what appears to be widely accepted. Over time, that builds a framework, a version of reality that feels stable, whether it's accurate or not. This isn't about people being naive. We've all been there. We've all been misled. It's about efficiency. You can't verify everything, so at some point you have to trust patterns. And this is where things shift. You don't need universal agreement. You need visible agreement. Once something appears settled, it becomes uncomfortable to challenge, not logically, but socially. And most people won't push against that. They'll adapt instead. They'll just accept it. May not believe it, but they'll go along with it. So sometimes what feels like shared understanding is actually shared exposure, built layer by layer until it feels natural. And once it feels natural, it rarely gets questioned. Not because it's been verified, but because it's been repeated enough to stick. Now let's wrap it up with the fun segment. And this one's going to be a good one, cryptid-wise. Almost an arch nemesis of Caesar, if you will. There's a story that doesn't come from headlines. It comes from the woods. It comes from very long winters. And from people who understand something about isolation that most of us never will. It's called the Wendigo. It's not just a creature, it's a warning. The Wendigo comes from the Algonquian folklore, described as something once human that became something else, often associated with extreme hunger, isolation, and cold environments. It's often tied to cannibalism, not just as an act, but as the transformation, a crossing of a line we were never meant to cross, the ultimate sin. And that changes a person permanently. Descriptions vary, obviously. There's plenty of media out there, from books to television shows to comics to movies. But the pattern stays consistent. Tall, fucking emaciated, usually. Almost skeletal, ghostly, hideous. And it acts as if it's starving all the time. No matter how much it consumes. That's the key detail. It's never satisfied. Almost sounds like, yeah, shit, better not say it. The hunger doesn't stop. So here's what we know. This isn't just a monster story. It's a pattern repeated across generations. It shows up in times of scarcity, in environments where survival becomes desperate. The transformation always starts with a decision, a line crossed. After that, there's no return. And maybe that's the point. Not that something is out there, but that something can happen to a person when limits disappear, when restraint is gone, when hunger of any kind becomes the only driving behavior. The Wendigo isn't just a creature, it's what's left when consumption replaces control. I mean, think about that in your life and our lives. Have you ever been controlled by something? You ever had a bad addiction? Drugs, shopping, credit cards. There's a little Wendigo in all of us. And that concludes tonight's broadcast. As always, links to the articles used will be in the description below. And if you have anything strange or unexplained, put it in the comments. Please like and subscribe and share this with your friends. Until next time, we'll keep listening for the signal.